All right. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I am over here like, what's going on? I don't generally go live, but I wanted to make sure that I came on here. Hold on one. I wanted to just make sure that I came on to share more about the training tomorrow. So quite a few people have been reaching out to me and saying, what's going on with the training? Are you still doing it? Yes, I am still doing it. For those of you who don't know much about it, I do want to share. It is homeschool like you mean it, right? I just feel like there's so many of us who are homeschooling now. A lot of Black families are homeschooling, and the resources, the training. And I do this a few times a year where I give the opportunity for others to learn and to share and to ask their questions. And then I also share more about our Black homeschool certification, which we have been running now for a few years, and we've graduated over 100 graduates at this point all across the country. And so this is kind of my way also of giving back, right, throughout the year, where I can just share some resources, where I can share my expertise, my experience on how to be the top Blacknificent homeschooler in the world for you and your family. So I'm just going to share a little bit more about it. Those of you who are here this tonight, not even this evening, I wanted to get on this evening, as I said. Those of you who are here tonight, I give thanks for you just jumping on really quick so I can more. And I just want to share more about what we'll be talking about. We will be diving into a multitude of topics. And one of the things that I really want to point out is that, you know, homeschooling is not a just, it's not an experience to take lightly. The fact that we are taking control of our children's education, the fact that we are providing the opportunities for them to thrive, it really takes community. It really takes a strong, powerful network of people, of family, of friends, of those in the community who share in the power of creating these experiences for our young people, making sure that we are tapped into the resources. There's so many resources for our children and families that a lot of us do not know about. But also there's certain strategies and principles that are beyond necessary. I've been homeschooling for almost 30 years. Another year it'll be 30 years. And never would have thought that I would be where I am today because of making that one simple choice to take the education of my children in my own hands. And so back then it was really looked at as something kind of taboo. Like, why would you do that? I got a lot of, you know, feedback from others that was based on, you know, fear. Like, I don't understand why you would want to take that on and not allow the school system to be in leadership. And I feel that's really what it comes down to, is declaring for ourselves and our family that we will take leadership over our children's future, over the future of our people, over everything that governs the greatness that we must produce with our children. So I take this very seriously. Just want to give a little background. I'm the executive director and the founder of the Liberated Minds Black Homeschool and Education Institute. And wow, you know, who would have thought after all of these years that I would be working with so many other children. I've worked with thousands of families across the world. And I've also created a lot of event opportunities around the education of our children and families, specifically to the needs of our Black children and our families, which is a very unique situation, right? So this training is happening tomorrow night. So if y'all don't have the information, I'm gonna put in the chat. I'm gonna give you all the information how you can join. There's no fee. There's no charge to get on. Please tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody who is curious about homeschooling. There's a lot of people who are very curious at this stage, because maybe you're one of those curious people, because of so many things that are happening within the public school system. None of it really surprises me. Kind of a forecasting. I got, you know, years ago when I started seeing so many things that were going on within the system, the political aspect, looking at the curriculum itself and how it really lacked what we needed, what our people needed in order to be able to thrive in a way where we are producing and creating excellence for ourselves and for our own community. So with that being said, I took the leap, and not even knowing that it was a thing that I could do. I kind of stumbled on it in the sense of looking for opportunities. I said, well, I don't want my children to just go to any school. I was living in New York City at the time. And as you know, New York City is wild. So I was just like, my children are not touching that system. So I was really looking more for private schools. And, in the looking for private schools, I came across homeschooling. And I says, wow. I said, so this is something that anybody could do? Piqued my interest. I noticed that it was mainly white Christian women groups that were based in New York City and New Jersey, that area. And I didn't see anything for our people. There was no conversation about this being an option for us in our community. However, it piqued my interest, and I began to read more. I remember calling down to the Department of Education office where everything was located, like in terms of all of the questions that I needed answered. And they said, yeah, like anybody can do this. And I was like, anybody? Y'all can imagine, like back then, 30 years ago, like, so anybody, like anybody. I had to clarify 50 different ways. And yes, it turned out that this was a viable option for me, for my community. And at the time, I had no, like a lot of people I talk to, they have a lot of doubts or fears. I had none of that. I have to say that. Like my situation was a little bit different. I felt completely confident and excited about rearing my children in a certain way. Now, at the time, my husband at the time did not quite agree, thought it was a little crazy. He was like, nobody does that in New York City. Nobody does that. And as if you know anything about me, I'm not about conforming to the norm. I'm about creating new pathways of excellence, of opportunities and experiences. And so, yes, so that has channeled into me homeschooling my own children. I have 7 children that I've homeschooled of my own, which has been a remarkable, transformative experience for myself, to say the least, in my family, right? I can say that with laughs and tears and all of that, because it's a journey, y'all. It's a journey. Knowing that we have full leadership, over our children's education is a really high level responsibility. And so, with that being said, I take it very seriously. But yet, even with that, I give myself the grace to make mistakes, like life itself, right? But also, I make sure that I am studying my craft, as a leader, as an educational leader, but also as a leader of my family, making sure that I am, looking at the various resources that are coming out, looking at the trends in education, looking at our rooted and grounded culture, right? Which is truly our compass as well. Sometimes we're just looking in the textbooks for curriculum, but the curriculum really is about, what we know will inspire, empower, and strengthen our children for generations, right? This is not just for the now. This is beyond us, right? This is something that is passed down ancestrally from generation to generation, that we have the right to educate and to make sure that our children receive a top-notch quality education, which has a very different definition from the public school to what our values, our morals, and traditions may be at home. So I first want to preface it with that. I'm going to share a little bit about the training, which is tomorrow. I'm not going to be on very long. I know I can be long-winded. I'm going to share a little bit about it because I want you all to be informed, and I want you, as you're telling other people about it, I want to make sure that you are about what's going to be happening in the space tomorrow. This is really for those who are thinking about homeschooling. A lot of you are curious. This is also for the veterans. Like, we've had so many veterans join us. Veterans meaning those who've been homeschooling a multitude of years, sometimes 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, believe it or not. And also for those who just want to have a greater impact on their children's success. And I think that's another key thing, because there are a lot of children who will never homeschool. But also I reference it, and I come from an angle that we all should be homeschooling to some degree. So even if our children are at home, right, or they're in the public school, private school, when they're home, we have the opportunity to teach them what we feel is necessary for their sustenance and for their growth. And a lot of times we feel like, oh, well, if I want to homeschool, but I'm not able to do it right now. What I do want to say is, if you don't know what it takes, then you don't really know if you can do it right now. So I invite you all to join as well, those who are kind of on the fence, to find out more about, like, what does it really take beyond just the desire, right? What are all of the legal requirements? How do you go about finding or building curriculum? How do you find social activities for your children? It's infinite things that we're going to talk about, and you'll get a chance to ask your questions as well. So I want to make sure that I'm encouraging all of you, because I'm excited. I don't do this. I used to do this more often. I used to do it like 3 times a year, right? I'm looking to do it much more frequently than I normally do, because there are so many people who I talk to that I really can't always give that personalized training and attention just through a phone call, or someone who calls and say, hey, my children are having all these challenges in the public school system, and I just don't know what to do. Many parents see their children like disengaged from reality, from family and education, like lost in a lot of these virtual worlds and computers and everything out here. That's the real that we're dealing with right now. So even though AI and the technology and all that is being pushed, because we know, yes, our children have to learn about that too, right? And they have to be leaders and innovators and creators in all of these professions. At the same time, sometimes there's huge challenges and gaps in terms of, a lot of the experiences and how they're experiencing them within the tech world. A lot of them are really getting lost in systematic issues. Also, there's a lot of preconceived notions about what our children can and can't do. And so we see the cultural erasure happening, them banning the books, although I think that's kind of crazy on my part. I think about it, I'm like, why are we fighting about them banning books? Like, we can go to the library, we can go to the bookstore, we can get the books that we want. Like, to me, that's not even a conversation. And honestly, I feel like they're not going to have the real Black books that we need that's going to truly empower us. Like, the Blueprint for Black Power, or, some of those really high level introspective books that change our lives in ways where we have more of a liberatory thinking. So just, to stop giving away our power and to stand in the essence of who we are and what we came here to do. Like, that's our obligation. Parenting is about leadership. And so we're going to talk about that. Like, talk to me, like, what is leadership? What is leadership? Sometimes we think you got to be leading an organization or leading a group, but just leading a family and leading your own children, right? And having that opportunity to ask ourselves the deeper questions of, what does it take to be a phenomenal leader? A lot of our children are also facing a lot of the daily exposure to negativity, whether it's curriculum trauma, which we don't even look at as trauma. We're like, oh, it's the curriculum. This is what they're learning. But there's curriculum trauma too, because there's so many lies within it, right? Identity crisis. It causes that as well when you're looking at, images that maybe degrade us, or really don't really affirm who we are in terms of our greatness. And then a lot of the challenges include political agendas. We know that has nothing to do with us, right? The political agendas are it's someone else devising for us what they think we should have to make sure they maintain the power that they have. And that's a lot of things we forget, is that it's not really about us, it's about them. And so homeschooling allows us to put the power back in our own hands. And the dominant culture of most schools, we already know, doesn't educate us anyway. It doesn't define who we are. It doesn't define our spiritual and political and economic disposition. It doesn't give our children what they need to not just thrive and be excellent and, yes, go on and have awesome careers and all the above, but it really pigeonholes them into what they think we should be doing. So it becomes limited instead of limitless. So even with that being said, there's still a lot of high achieving young people, let's just be real, in the public school system, because many of us, we do great at whatever we do, whatever we put our hands on. So that's just another component and another aspect, right? Is that even with the high achieving students, we have to remember that if they were in a liberatory environment, imagine how much more they could do with something that's tailor-made, right? Specifically for them, for their growth and their development. So a lot of times it's not a negative story of children are failing, they're doing horrible, they can't read, you know, all this stuff. Yes, we know those are true and real problems, right? We're not going to ignore that either. But at the same time, hold on one second. But at the same time, we also want to recognize that, with that being said, that many of us thrive in all kinds of environments. We just want to make sure that we're maximizing what we are doing for our children. We're giving them the utmost opportunities. One of the things we're going to talk about is, you know, to decide what the opportunities are that they're going to give us. So that's another huge piece, right? Because opportunities are all around us everywhere. Everywhere we look, they are there. So I'm going to teach you how to recognize those opportunities. I'm also going to go even a little bit deeper and say how we teach you how to create these opportunities, right? And so the list goes on and on and on. Let me see. I'm going to pull up a couple of these different topics that we're going to be going over. In addition, let's see and pull this up. Hold on. Oh, yes, of course. We're going to be going over various systems that we can use, which is really important when we're talking about maximizing what our children can achieve, to make it easier on us, to make it easier on them, to make sure that we have good tracking and records of their successes and also the work that they've put in, maybe some of the organizations they belong to, other experiences that are relevant in terms of their growth and development that we want to talk about. And we want to make sure that we keep that on the forefront as well. There are a multitude of topics. I can go on here forever, but I'm going to limit it because it is 10 o'clock at night. And I just wanted to make sure I came on to invite you all to be there, to make sure that you're sharing it with others. And the link is in the chat. So the link is in the chat. If you're interested, hit that link, share it with others, other Black families who just want to explore, like I said, explore homeschooling if they've never done it before and they have an interest. Maybe they're homeschooling already, they need some assistance. Maybe they've been homeschooling and they're doing a phenomenal, Blacknificent, incredible job already, but they want to add more tools to the arsenal. Definitely want to invite you all to come out. So that is going to be tomorrow, July 9th. Goodness, where is the year going? Wednesday, July 9th. That's tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so we'll be going in for a few hours. Like I said, bring the family, share it with everyone that you know. And I'm happy to be on here with you all today or this evening or tonight, I should say. And I will look to see you tomorrow. Much love to you and your families. And I appreciate you getting on, and send much love and light to your families. When you click the link, you also will find out a little bit more about my background. I've worked extensively in many aspects of education, but in particularly homeschool families. And so I really would love to share my experience, my wisdom, my knowledge. It is definitely made to be passed forward and not kept to ourselves, right? I've homeschooled over 100,000 hours at this point, which is like so incredible to me. I think I hit that mark a couple years ago, 100,000 hours of homeschooling experience. And yeah, so I will see you tomorrow. Much love, much light to you and your families. And any thoughts, any questions that any of you have, you want to put in the chat, I'm here. I'll give it a moment. Let's see if any of you want to put a question in the chat. Greetings, Mama Avana. How are you? How are you? I just said I had to come on and share more about this training because people have been asking me for some details. And I usually don't do lives, Mama Avana. But I plan on doing more often, and just being able to spread the word and get the word out to everyone about what is needed. Mama Abena is a graduate of the homeschool certification, and she is a phenomenal, beautiful, amazing woman, an elder at that, who I revere. I have a thing for the children and the elders. You know, Mama Abena, I revere you so much. I love you. You know that already. One of my favorite people on the planet, because since I've met her, she has exhibited all of the essence of what homeschooling represents, which is taking leadership over our own lives, over the lives of those we love in the community and our children in particular. So I just want to send you some love, Mama Abena. Let's see, I can't really see who else is on here. However, if any of you are on and you want to ask a question, you can. I know I got a couple of questions coming through the text. I think I answered those already. So anyway, much love and good night. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Like I said, Wednesday, July 9th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know many of you are coming from different time zones, Eastern Standard Time. Okay. All right. Much love. And I'll see you all soon. A tap.